Thanks for staying with us. Let's bring you some international updates from Japan now. Even before the battered nation could start off the process of recovery, 2 more earthquakes have struck. The latest one, measuring 6, hit Fukushima, and the major aftershocks continue. Earlier this morning, too, an earthquake measuring 6.6 on the Richter scale shook up the island. As the people of Japan struggle to cope, this one struck the central and mountainous part of the country early this morning, 170 kilometers north of Tokyo. Dozens of aftershocks have rattled Japan's northeast since yesterday's quake, but the most recent quake was in an entirely different location. It caused buildings in Tokyo to sway. Over 1,700 people are estimated to have died in the Japan disaster, and that number could rise as relief and rescue workers fan out across the areas ravaged by the tsunami. In other reports coming in from the nation, the National News Agency says about 10,000 people are missing in the port town of Misaniruka, which is more than half the population of that town. But the true extent of the disaster was not known because roads to the worst hit areas were washed away or blocked by debris and airports were closed. 6 million households, more than 10% of the total in Japan, are without electricity. The powerful earthquake that unleashed a devastating tsunami appears to have moved the main island by 8 feet and shifted the earth on its axis as well. Well, NDTV Hindu tried to get in touch with a man of Tamil origin settled in tsunami-struck island of Japan. He gave us an account of the situation there today.
Tokyo, Yokohama region situation is under control. The basic lifeline is restored. Public transportation is up, and gas, electricity, and water all up. So this is compared to yesterday, where the situation was much worse. A total blackout. We couldn't communicate with each other, and public transportation was down. So now things are better. The only thing is further up northeast and Miyagi and Niigata area, there has been utter chaos and lots of loss of life and all has happened. But in the Tokyo, Yokohama region, things are much better. Only thing is, none of us have expected or experienced this much. So there was some confusion, both at home and office. I was in Landmark Tower, which is the tallest building in whole of Japan. Okay, it's up, say 72 floors above. So the only thing was, I was literally lost my hope because I have not experienced that much of earthquake.
Well, some reprieve in some of the regions today, but quite unprecedented, although Japan is no stranger to something like this. Well, today an explosion was also heard at the Fukushima nuclear plant. There are reports that at least 4 workers have been injured. Japan's massive earthquake had caused a power outage that has disabled the nuclear reactor's cooling system. In other reports that quoting officials really said that radiation levels have now fallen though at the nuclear facility in Fukushima after it was hit by an explosion. Japanese officials fear a meltdown at a nuclear power plant hit by yesterday's earthquake after material that was radioactive was detected outside. In fact, cesium and radioactive iodine were detected near the #1 power station. 80,000 residents within a 10-kilometer radius have been evacuated, with the levels there at least 10 times above the acceptable limit. The devastating earthquake that struck Japan left passengers stranded in airports in the United States and prompted tsunami warnings for Hawaii and U.S. western coastal states. On the U.S. mainland, marinas and harbors in California and Oregon bore the brunt of the damage. Authorities estimate the damage to be in millions of dollars. In Santa Cruz County in California, people were allowed to return to their homes. Well, back home, the election season is turning up the temperatures, but the Detroit of India is certainly not lagging behind in terms of industrial output. NDTV Hindu caught up with Mike Bonaham, the managing director and the president of Ford India. Here's what he had to say about the blossoming auto industry despite a constantly changing political scene.
It opened its doors to international investment in the 90s. We were the first MNC, motor vehicle manufacturer, multinational corporation to come and set ourselves up here in India. We went through a very robust process of selection relative to the states that we would move into, and we looked at a number of criteria. industrial policy, that transparency, whatever political party was in, we had to have consistency in terms of industrial policy. Availability of a well-educated labour force. Obviously, the access to ports is another key and critical item. And overall, for us, Tamil Nadu fitted all of the criteria in one way or another, some extremely strongly in number one, others right up there amongst the top, the leaders. Tamil Nadu is a very stable environment for us. We've had a tremendous relationship here, no matter which political party has been in, because they've had that industrial policy that's transparent. And that to us provides a high level of comfort.
Now, health estimates say 1 in every 200 people aged 50 and less and 1 out of every 10th person above 80 years develop glaucoma. That's how prevalent it is. We spoke to the former president, the All India Ophthalmological Society, Dr. Babu Rajendran. He took us through how this disease could be identified and then prevented.
98% of people with glaucoma do not know they have glaucoma and know only after they lose vision, about 40% of their vision. What is important is that this glaucoma has no symptoms and they will not know till they become blind, at least in one eye. And one of the biggest things about the disadvantages that we have is most people, if they have one good eye, they will not know that the other eye is being affected. The problem with glaucoma is that it is not the vision. You may be able to read everything, see everything, but they start losing the field of vision. And people who are watching now could do this very quickly. Because if you close one eye, place your hand like this, this is your normal vision. And in glaucoma, it goes down like this and you see something like a tube and then finally it shuts down. So if you have a normal eye, you will not know this is happening to the other eye. Number one is to go and get periodic checkups, especially if there is a family history of glaucoma. Now, I would suggest that if a member of the family has glaucoma, not only should he get checked, but his siblings, his brothers and sisters, his children and his parents, all generations, they must get checked, because you may find glaucoma in one person and then you'll suddenly check and find a totally asymptomatic person who has never had their eye checked also having, I find people with glaucoma now in the 20s and the 30s.
Well, moving on to some national updates now. Former CVC PJ Thomas is not going to back down this time, it seems. He is going to challenge the Supreme Court's verdict, which had declared his appointment illegal. Thomas says he will file a review petition in the court. Last week, a 3-judge bench headed by the Chief Justice had said that since Thomas has a vigilance case against him, his appointment does not exist in the eye of the law, following which the president had cancelled his appointment. The government, in fact, had started also looking for a new CVC. Moving to Mumbai, 3 days after college lecturer Nidhi Gupta flung her 2 kids and jumped off the 19th story of her Malad housing society, the police have booked 5 members of her family. Her parents, however, alleged that she might have been forced to write the note. Nidhi's father also said that her husband and his parents had mentally tortured her for years. The 31-year-old woman committed suicide by jumping off a 19th floor terrace in her building this week. She also pushed off her 2 children, 7-year-old Gaurav and 3-year-old Mahika. Nidhi left behind a suicide note saying she held no one responsible for her extreme step. You're watching the news tonight. Up ahead, just when Nagpur was bursting with dhamaka, courtesy Sachin Ramesh Tendulkar, he took his walk back to the pavilion. Catch live updates from today's match when we come back.